You know, there's this narrative that's often overlooked. It's like the part they don't want you to hear, and it's happening right now, right?
Yep, that's the one. It really forces us to ask, what does Iran think America did to them first?
Exactly. When most folks think of Iran, they jump straight to 1979. Angry crowds, burning flags, the hostage crisis, and that chant, "Death to America." But you have to dig deeper.
So you're saying the story doesn't actually start in 1979?
Right, it actually starts way earlier, in the early 1950s. Iran had this Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh. He was a nationalist, not a cleric, and he stood up for Iranian oil, insisting it benefit the country, not just British companies.
And then, as history shows, America and Britain intervened, knocking him out of power, didn't they?
Exactly. The U.S. government has officially documented its involvement in that 1953 coup. To some Americans in the Cold War, that move was just strategic, but for
Right.
many Iranians, it was theft of oil, of political independence, even democracy.
When you put it like that, it really recontextualizes all that subsequent resentment, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And think about it. After the coup, the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, came into power as an ally of the U.S., but his regime soon became synonymous with authoritarian rule. His security service, SAVAK, was notorious for surveillance, arrests, and torture.
So, essentially, the very support America lent helped to create a repressive order, making ordinary Iranians feel abandoned by their own fate, while the superpower was backing a dictator.
Yes, and that's one of the wounds that runs deep. Imagine being a student or a worker and witnessing your society, your future, controlled by a regime that's protected by America.
Yeah, that's a bitter pill to swallow. But then, fast forward to 1979, the revolution, the hostage crisis, and that anti-American sentiment exploded, right?
Precisely. The revolution wasn't just a reaction to the Shah's tyranny. It was also a response to decades of what Iranians saw as American interference. They feared another intervention, especially after seeing the Shah get medical treatment in the U.S.
And then, later on, the narrative gets even more intertwined with conflict in the region, like with the Iran-Iraq War.
Yep. In 1980, when Saddam Hussein's Iraq invaded Iran, the U.S. tilted toward Iraq. That's another major point. While Iran was reeling from invasion and suffering heavy casualties, America was seen as backing the enemy.
That must have intensified the feeling of betrayal. It's one thing to be left alone, but quite another when a superpower sides with your foe during a brutal war.
Right. Exactly. This is not just abstract policy for ordinary people. It's about families losing their sons, cities bombed, and an entire nation feeling abandoned on its worst day.
And if that wasn't enough, there were direct military actions like Operation Praying Mantis, and even more catastrophic, the downing of Iran Air Flight 655.
Stop right there. That incident, shooting down a civilian airliner, killing 290 people, is etched into the collective memory. In America, it's often brushed aside as a tragic mistake, but in Iran, it's seen as an overt act of aggression.
So, this isn't just about political maneuvering. It becomes a deeply personal wound, like a scar that never heals.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of sanctions. On paper, sanctions are called alternatives to war, a way to apply pressure without direct conflict. But for everyday Iranians, these sanctions hit home. Medicine, food, daily life, budgets are all impacted.
It's like being punished for political reasons. When you're struggling to pay for essentials because geopolitical chess moves are being played out far from home.
That's a perfect way to put it. And it doesn't end there. There's a whole chapter on nuclear policy that's quite ironic.
Oh, you mean how America once supported Iran's nuclear ambitions under the Shah, and then later used nuclear concerns as a pretext to isolate them?
Exactly. Back in the 1970s, the U.S. was even exploring nuclear cooperation with Iran. But then, when Iran took a more independent stance, nuclear technology became something to be feared and constrained. It sends a very mixed message.
Right. And then there's the JCPOA, the nuclear deal. Even when Iran complied with inspections and made concessions, the U.S. later just rips it up, restoring sanctions.
Yes, that move was brutal. Even if you had misgivings about the deal itself, the fact that America could sign an agreement and then break it later completely undermined trust.
Yeah, which only deepened the existing wounds. Trust, once broken, is incredibly hard to mend.
Absolutely. And then, later on in 2020, The killing of Qasem Soleimani in a drone strike further exemplified the cycle of extrajudicial actions. From Iran's perspective, this wasn't justice. It was another act of aggression by a distant power.
And there's an irony here. American narratives often paint these moves as precautionary measures. Yet from the Iranian side, it looks like America is intentionally undermining the sovereignty of their nation, repeatedly.
That's right. So if we pull all these threads together, what do we see?
We see a long history of perceived American interference. From the 1953 coup, backing the Shah, leaning toward Iraq during the Iran-Iraq War, direct military confrontations, sanctions, nuclear double standards, to targeted strikes like that against Soleimani.
Exactly. And each of these actions collectively builds a narrative of betrayal and humiliation in Iranian memory. It's like a series of events that have left scars, both physical and emotional.
I get that. But don't you think some might argue that these actions were part of a larger strategic objective during the Cold War and beyond?
That's a valid point. And many in Washington would say it was all about stopping communism and protecting global interests. But from the Iranian point of view, strategic objectives aren't enough to excuse the deep personal consequences of those actions.
True. And it's important, right, to note that acknowledging this history doesn't mean justifying everything that happened on either side. It's about understanding how each side's narrative forms its identity.
Precisely. Recognizing these intertwined histories is crucial if there's to be any real conversation about peace and trust going forward. If only one side's memories count, how can true reconciliation take root?
Yeah. So when someone says, Iran has been hostile for 50 years, it's essential to also ask, what did America do to them first? That honest question demands we face all aspects, not just the headlines.
Absolutely. Peace, after all, starts when we tell the complete truth about both sides of the story. And when we acknowledge that history on both ends is filled with pain, regret, and, yes, responsibility.